Okay, welcome everybody to the November webinar, November NECAFS webinar. We still have some folks joining us, but I'm going to start the webinar. It is being recorded. What I've done is muted everybody except for myself at the time. For the time being, I'll unmute the presenters one by one as we go through the program. And each presenter, we have 6 of them. Each presenter will have 10 to 12 minutes of material that they would like to cover. And then we will have questions and answers at the end of each section. So I'm going to try to handle that through the chat box. If the question or answer seems like it's not getting to the point, we'll unmute the questioner and see if we can clarify it in real time. Welcome again. This is a webinar put on by the Northeast Center to Advance Food Safety. Myself and Elizabeth Newbold and the project PIs for the Northeast Center to Advance Food Safety welcome you. We are one of 4 FDA and or USDA funded regional centers with the purpose, with the intent of improving outreach training and education related to the produce safety rule and the preventive controls rule stemming from FSMA. One of the goals of our project is to increase communication, outreach, and coordination throughout the region among lots of different stakeholder groups. And one of the groups that we are here to help support are small processors and food hubs and small medium-sized produce growers. Food hubs in particular were an area or a group that we identified in our early proposal stages based on stakeholder feedback as something that as a group that we really wanted to engage with, and we're delighted to be able to hold this first webinar focused on food hubs and food safety to hear about how things are going for you all and where you've had some success and where you've had challenges yet to be resolved, and to see what we might be able to do together to move forward. With that, we are leaning on a lot of technology today to make the webinar happen. Things do go wrong occasionally. If they do, and things and you're not able to hear us, or the GoToMeeting console crashes, just give us a few minutes. We'll do our best to reboot, reload, and just dial back in. Audio seems to be the biggest problem for folks on these webinars, and so if you're starting out trying to use a computer audio option, there is an alternative if that's not working for you, and it's to phone in. The phone-in information is in the chat box. The number is 408-650-3123, and the access code is 221-534-093. Brad, I see your note about feedback. Give me 1 second. Let's see if it resolves a little bit, okay? So we have a phone-in option as backup if you're having trouble with computer audio. We've asked 6 food hubs to present today to give us a little bit of background on their operation, the details about it, decision-making specifically around food safety as it relates to their food hub operation, some of the challenges that they've run into, and some of the successes that they've been able to achieve. And then lastly, we've asked them to think about the future and going forward what they see as key needs or opportunities related to food safety in their enterprises. The other thing I want to do is invite everybody to stay connected with NECAFS. We do maintain a website, and we also have several other ways to stay in touch. I'm going to paste those in the chat box right now so folks can copy and paste that as needed. We have a monthly e-newsletter that goes out, and you can subscribe to that through Constant Contact. There's a link provided there. You can always get in touch with us by email, and then we also are on Facebook and Twitter. That all being said, I think we can get started with the actual content for the webinar. Lisa Reeder and Adriana Vargo are joining us today from Local Food Hub in Charlottesville, Virginia. I'm going to unmute them here in just a moment. Lisa, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I'm here. Can
Awesome.
you hear me?
Yeah. Okay, so Lisa Reeder and Adriana Vargo from Local Food Hub are going to kick us off. Take it away. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, thanks, Chris. My name is Lisa Reeder, and I am going to introduce you to our organization. I'll do so fairly briefly. There are a number of people on this call who probably are already familiar with our work. And then the second part of our presentation will be our Director of Grower Services, Adriana Vargo, and she will introduce herself when that time comes. Our contact information is on our final slide. If you have questions for us, please don't hesitate to reach out or to ask them in this format. Next slide, please, Chris. Local Food Hub is a nonprofit 501c3. Our mission is to partner with Virginia farmers to increase community access to local food. We do that by providing support services, infrastructure, and market opportunities to connect people with food grown close to home. Next slide, please, Chris. This is a graphic that hopefully will make it clear to you how we work. On the right-hand side of the graphic, you can see our distribution operations, our community partnerships, and our contributions to public knowledge. And then on the left side of our logo, you'll see where we are and the work that we do. We consider farmers and small-scale food producers to be our primary stakeholders, and so we tailor our services to support them and hopefully to contribute to their resiliency and sustainability. We are in Central Virginia. We are about 2 hours from the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area and about 1 hour from Richmond, which is our state's capital. We're in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains, so that tells you a bit about where we are. Chris, you can go ahead and go on to the next slide. Thank you. So here is our operation in a snapshot. We do operate a refrigerated warehouse, a 4-zone refrigerated warehouse. It is GHP certified, which is the facility's counterpart to GAP, Good Agricultural Practices. Our fleet consists of 3 refrigerated vehicles, 2 straight trucks, and 1 van. We work with about 75 partner producers and small-scale value-added producers, and we have more than 200, probably closer to 300 active customers at this point. And that ranges from other distributors through contract food service institutions, schools, retailers, restaurants, and buying clubs. So on the partner end, a very diverse group, and on the customer end, equally diverse. About 75% of the volume that we handle is fresh produce, and then the remainder is eggs, cheese, value-added items, and meat. We do buy our product outright, so we stock it and sell it from our facility. So because of that arrangement, we do have a fair amount of liability because of our ownership of the product. In this year, by the end of the year, we will have reached 1.6 million in sales. In general, we operate between a 25 and 30% markup. We do still incur operational losses on our work, and we are also grant funded to cover that and to cover some of our programmatic work. In addition to our wholesale distribution, we have some much smaller food access programs that we are actively building out. Those comprise about 5% of our business at this point. So as you can probably tell, about 95% of our distribution work is focused on the wholesale market. And as such, most of our food safety work is also focused on accessing that market on behalf of our growers and safeguarding ourselves and our growers and our customers in that market. If you go on to the next slide, Chris, please.
Yep.
So the contrast between the previous slide and this slide, you can see what we do here. Growers come in to our warehouse, they deliver their product. Most of them do not have refrigerated vehicles at this point, and we aggregate that food and ship it out in pallet increments. So we're a true aggregator. We do maintain source identification through to our end customer, and our system is somewhat clunky, but it is traceable in terms of one step forward and one step back. That is the end of my portion. I'll introduce my coworker, Adriana Vargo, who will delve into our food safety work.
Thank you so much for organizing this. My name is Adriana Vargo. I'm Director of Grower Services for Local Food Hub. Our Grower Services work is very much focused on quality assurance, food safety, and regulatory compliance, and that was a deliberate decision we made about 5 years ago when we started working with more and more farms in Virginia. Because we work with such a diversity of growers, we realized that we couldn't use a one-size-fits-all approach to our food safety requirements, so we developed a tiered approach and associated support services to help growers progress through each of the stages. Water quality is something that we identified early on as our priority, and that's what we worked on first with growers. So as you can see here, at the entry point, we require water testing, annual water testing from all of our farm suppliers, in addition to attendance to food safety training. It can be, that can take different forms. It can be our training or training that Extension puts on, but we certainly want to see that there's an investment in knowledge gaining. So the water testing, the training is kind of that entry level. Going on from there, we work with growers to develop scale appropriate food safety plans, and I really like Cornell's decision tree project materials for that purpose. We use that as our base, and then I've added a lot of Virginia-related resources and a set of risk assessment exercises that farmers can go through to really distill what their practices are, where they need to invest in improvements. So that's kind of the next stage. The third and final stage, which is really where I spend a lot of my time and resources, is on GAP certification, helping farmers go through that process of developing their food safety manuals, adjusting their procedures on their farms, and going through the audit and successfully achieving that. So that's a fairly resource-intensive process, but what we found is that by investing in that, investing in both technical assistance and cost share opportunities, that's what's enabled us to get growers over that hurdle. So everything from a farm visit to developing the manual to performing a mock audit to coordinating the audit with our Virginia Department of Agriculture auditors, and then having the cost share in place. Next slide, please.
Sorry, one too far. There you go.
No problem. So some of the challenges that we face, we work with a really diverse group of farmers. We work with growers within Virginia, but Virginia is a pretty big state, so they're spread out quite a bit. They vary a lot in terms of just their size. Some are less than an acre, some are hundreds of acres. Some are beginning farmers, some are 5th, 6th generation farmers. So there's a real challenge just in that diversity. I mean, we feel like there's a strength in that diversity too, because we have a very diverse customer base, and so that helps us to match growers with buyers. But it certainly brings in some challenging for the outreach and education. In addition, just capacity and resources, what they have available in terms of human capital or financial capital to be able to invest in their farms, and particularly on-farm infrastructure are areas that we see can be very expensive for growers. A lot of the growers that have pursued GAP certification have had to invest, and they've been glad to do it, but it is an expensive prospect. Another big challenge for us are really market demands. We're working with a lot of larger buyers, and there's consistencies in what they're asking for. there's expense in what they're asking for in terms of the systems that they want us to use and the costs for the audits. And it can differ by market sector. So there's not necessarily kind of a uniform understanding of what growers need to accomplish to meet those different requirements. And there is just the expectation that those demands are met rather than this idea of a shared investment that if we want to be sourcing from smaller farms, we all need to be figuring out the ways to best do that and make it realistic financially. Next slide, please. In terms of some of our outcomes and successes, I think one of the big ones is that we have some great training partnerships that have developed over the past few years. We work closely with our extension, and that has been really important to leverage resources and expertise and funding opportunities in some cases. Because of that relationship, we were included in the Southern Center, which is the Southern counterpart to what you all are doing. So, and that's been very helpful just to kind of grow our network of expertise and opportunities. And that's also enabled us to become part of the Produce Safety Alliance as a trainer, and we hosted earlier this month the first grower training in Virginia. So those types of training partnerships have really helped us to get resources to our partner farms and to really try to stay ahead of the curve. We've helped 15 farms go through the GAP, USDA GAP audit over the past 2 seasons. On average, it's about $500 per farm. I am coordinating the audit, so our State Department of Ag will sometimes do 2 or 3 audits in a day, and there's a cost savings there. And also, they're familiar with our program. They're familiar with the manual that we use, so it's a very streamlined process for them, and I know they appreciate that. We have very effective technical assistance in place for that process. It is resource intensive. It can take a few farm visits per farm and additional time to kind of work through the manual and the procedures. I do the audit coordination, and I'm there at the audits too to advocate for the farms if needed. And then we also provide some additional resources like training DVDs, laminated sign packs, and other things that are just helpful for the process. Certainly our work on food safety has helped with our overall quality and consistency of our product, so that's been an added bonus, and I think we just are more known in our community with our customers, with our growers for our placing a priority on food safety and really helping to grow that commitment across the state. Next slide. In terms of ongoing work, FSMA is obviously first and foremost on our minds. We're looking at ways to integrate FSMA with GAP. Obviously, we know that USDA and FDA are working together to harmonize GAP with the produce safety rules. So in terms of the Food Hub, we fall under the preventative controls rules, so because we don't do any repacking, we will have modified requirements there, but we're working with our partner farms to navigate FSMA as well, their compliance, and helping them continue on getting more farms GAP certified and transitioning the farms that do fall under the produce safety rule to harmonized GAP. We also will be further developing our supplier verification program so that it meets the preventative controls rule requirements. And we just continue to factor in the shifting market requirements and the new regulatory environment into how we develop as an organization and how we develop our programs moving forward. And that's it for us.
Fantastic job, both with the material, putting the material together and everything behind it. Thanks so much for sharing. Let's open it up to questions. Thanks, Lisa and Adriana, so much. If you have a question, go ahead and drop it in the chat box. I'll start with one, just to get us rolling here. I really appreciate the tiered approach that you all have taken to helping your suppliers sort of get on the ramp toward improved produce safety practices. I'm curious how your customers, how aware your customers are of that approach and how it's been received.
Well, a lot of our customers, a lot of our smaller customers, I think they assume that we're taking care of all of the food safety issues, which we are, but we don't see a huge demand from a lot of our smaller customers on the food safety front. It's really with the larger ones that comes more into play. But that said, I think they do appreciate that we have these established relationships and that we're working with growers. For them, it's almost more about quality, and there is an overlap between good agricultural practices and how that plays out in terms of the quality of the product. And for a lot of our customers, that's really what's key.
Sure. Thank you. And Elizabeth Newbold asks, do you have a time frame for grower implementation of the tiered approach?
No, again, every farm is so unique, and it also depends on what their capacity for growth is and whether it's likely that they'll ever even get to the point where GAP certification makes sense for them. So there are farms that will just likely stay at that second tier as long as our customer base is okay with that.
Sure. Any other questions for Local Food Hub, Lisa Reeder and Adriana Vargo, before we move on to our next presenter? Okay. Thanks again very much. It was a great presentation. Going to move on. Yeah, thank you. We're going to move on to Farm Fresh Rhode Island. Hannah Melion is joining us. Hannah, I believe you are unmuted on my end. If you could unmute yourself. I'm taking a look here, Hannah. Give me 1 second. Hannah, I'm not hearing anything from you. I wonder if you could try just looking to see if you're muted locally there. Give it a shot. All right, bear with me, everybody. Hannah, can you say something? Okay, I think we're going to have to move to the next presenter, which is Liz Buxton. Liz, can we hear you?
I hope so.
Yep, we can hear you. Hannah,
okay, great.
Hannah and I will keep working on her audio and we'll loop back.
Okay, great.
And give me 1 second to get to your slides. There, Liz.
All right. So I'm from the Franklin County Community Development Corporation. This is a community development corporation that was formed in 1979 to maximize community control over our future economic destiny. Sounds very interesting, doesn't it? So in 2001, to further increase the economic power of the region, we have a lot of farms. The Connecticut River Valley is very fertile and has a lot of great farms. We built the Western Mass Food Processing Center, and actually tonight we are celebrating 15 years of being in business, basically. We are a not-for-profit. I always like to say that we're a not-for-profit that really has the not-for-profit part down really well. So we still haven't found a way really to make a profit in this, but we are heavily subsidized, not heavily, but we're subsidized by grants, local donations to help us service the farms and especially food producers in the area. We also are a small business incubator, and the Franklin County Community Development Corporation does technical assistance for non-food businesses as well. And we have helped over 1,000 businesses in the almost 40 years that we've been in existence. Since 2001, when the Food Processing Center was built, we've helped over 300 different farm and food companies bring products to market. At the Western Mass Food Processing Center, you can see some pictures of our staff and some of the equipment we have here. We do value-added farm products, so we will do applesauce and apple butter and tomato sauce for local farms. We also do specialty sauces. We are pretty good at doing acidified processes here, thermally processes here. Originally when the center was built, there was a dry line which had ovens and stoves. In the years that we've been here, they weren't used very much. You bake a loaf of bread, you have a couple days to sell it. You make a bottle of sauce, you have 2 years to sell it. So in 2014, we converted the dry line to another wet line with 3 more 40-gallon kettles. We also installed at this time the only IQF nitrogen based tunnel in Western Mass, enabling us to quick freeze vegetables from local farms. This whole endeavor cost us about $106,000. We did get USDA grants to help with that. This program is still in development. We have a lot of the infrastructure in place. However, what we don't have is someplace to put the vegetables after they're frozen. So we are excited that on Monday we are breaking ground on a new 3,000 square foot freezer cooler storage unit, which will be attached to this building, which will finally enable us to actually hopefully reach the goal of 150,000 pounds of local vegetables frozen every year. You can go on to the next slide.
Okay.
All right. So food safety challenges. In any given year, I work with over 50 different companies, either farmers or entrepreneurs. And the problems that we face every day is knowledge and training. I spend an enormous amount of time training people on food safety. We have very strict SOPs here. However, not everyone seems to understand why they are so strict. So I get a lot of clients that their perception of clean and sanitized is not my perception of clean and sanitized. So we have a lot of farmers that actually do their own production, and they are probably the most challenging to work with. They're very messy, and they don't quite understand, why things have to be a certain temperature or why things have to be sanitized. So also, working with 50 different companies every year, we work with a lot of temp workers. When I first started here, this was 3 years ago, almost all the workers here were temp workers. And that created a real problem. It gave us labor, which is great. However, it meant that every day I was training, an hour to 2 hours every day, training new staff on what our sanitation protocols were. So we, in the last 2 years, we have actually been able to hire 5 production workers on a per diem basis, because we are a seasonal facility with busyness and non-busyness. And this has helped a lot because I've been able to train these people on our sanitation protocols. They take a lot of pride in the work they do, and they help me police all the other clients. If they see something that's going wrong or something that's not up to my standards, they will either address it themselves or come get me to address it. And that has helped immensely, having that staff around. We also were able to hire a part-time maintenance and warehouse worker. This gentleman helps keep all our machines maintained, which is so important for food safety. So if I know that if there's a gasket that's going bad, or we can replace it, and where before there wasn't really a lot of oversight on that. So those are just some of the small things we've done the last 3 years. I'm constantly updating our SOPs to meet the more challenges of different productions we have here. We recently took on a peanut butter production, which made me have to have special SOPs just for the peanut butter production to keep from cross-contamination, since peanut is an allergen. So we're constantly redoing and trying to keep up with the regulations as they change. It's a full-time job, I have to tell you. So if you go on to the next slide, we'll talk about some lessons. So continual education and training is such the key. Trying to keep up with the regulations. Most of the clients that I work with don't have a lot of food experience, so they don't understand everything, or I might get a lot of restaurant people who don't understand why they can't just wear a hat with their ponytail sticking out, or why they have to wear gloves, or why we have to clean and sanitize everything before we use it and after we use it. So continuing education and training is the key. Making food safety everyone's responsibility, that they understand the ramifications of not being safe. Clients are my best defense and they're my worst enemy. Some clients, no matter how much I teach them and fine them, we still have to clean up after them. You can never be too vigilant or too strict. They call me like the hairnet police. I do not let anyone in this facility without wearing a hairnet or beard net. I do not let anybody in this facility without washing their hands. I do not let anybody in this facility that is coughing and hacking. So that's, they call me the police, but it keeps this place running smoothly. The other thing is that the clients that come to us, they need help navigating the maze of federal, state, and local regulations. They don't understand anything about like acidified foods. You know, I've had many clients that come to me for a feasibility meeting and they say, oh, I've been making this and just stick it in bottles and selling it to my friends, and I'll be like, please stop. You're going to kill someone. And they don't understand that. They don't understand how all the regulations work and the steps, and that you can't come to me on Wednesday and have a product for a fair on Saturday, and how these things take time, and that acidified product, depending on the complexity of the process, may take 6 or more months to get to market. And the other thing is train the trainer. I can't stay up to date enough on the regulation changes and the changes to the food safety landscape. It's an active pursuit. Every day, you know, either through message boards or the community of practice, you know, learning about what other people are doing. And especially mixed-use kitchens like this one, where you know, I have 50 different farmer food businesses in here, and how do you keep that all safe? You can go on to the next slide. So much my outcomes, but you know what we are doing right now. So like timelines, you know, we are in 2017. We need to be compliant with FSMA, and then for my producers, most of them 2018. But some of the problems that I'm having right now is exactly the definition of a PCQI and how that will affect each of my clients. As in this facility, obviously I would be the PCQI for this facility, but how about each one of my producers? I don't want to take on that responsibility or liability for each single one of my producers. However, if I have someone that's producing once a year or twice a year, do they need that certification? And you know, I'm looking for more answers in groups like this about exactly how the FDA is going to determine each one of my clients. This is a facility. However, when you register with the Food Defense Act, each one of my clients registers as a facility producing at this facility. So I'm looking for answers for that. I'm also looking for answers about responsibility and liability. If I am a PCQI, or we have a designated PCQI, or several of them here, who is doing food safety plans for other clients, where does the liability fall if something happens? And then costs. Costs are always a thing with my entrepreneurs. They don't want to spend a lot of money, and if they all have to take $600 training courses, I'm imagining that I will get some pushback from that. And then continuing education and training, we've had some great product development courses run here by Amanda Kinchla from UMass Extension, and that has been really great. It's a great foundation for people. It's, you know, several steps above ServSafe, which is a great introductory program to food safety, but really doesn't go into detail of food safety in a production plant. And it's been great for clients to go to that and understand a little more about the regulations and the maze that they'll have to traverse. So what do I got for questions?
Thanks, Liz. The first question I see here is actually from your friend Amanda, I think, at UMass Extension. It says, what is the FPC's policy regarding food safety plans? Do you require each client to have a food safety plan?
Yes. The simple answer is yes. The more complex issue is how exactly complex does that safety plan have to be? Everyone that produces here must have a process that identifies critical control points, that identifies, you know, that you have to sign off. We have a big sanitation sheet that they have to sign off that they've sanitized and cleaned things, and then their whole process has to be listed. You know, what were the critical control points? Was it a pH? Was it a temperature? All that has to be in there. You know, how much more complex does that have to be for a simple product?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the question. But, you know, we also, like, as far as like traceability, we require 100% traceability for everything that goes through here. So every ingredient must be, you know, the batch code of that ingredient must be listed on the production sheet, along with all the, you know, all the critical control points for as far as for recall. So, you know, so the simple answer is yes.
Mm-hmm. Great. And then another question from Tracy Harding, are your SOPs, sanitation protocols, all text-based, or do you accompany them with photographs?
Some of the actual SOPs are all text-based, but by certain pieces of equipment, we do have pictures. You know, like for the dishwasher, for instance, it's kind of hard to describe where certain parts of the dishwasher are. So we have pictures that, you know, this is a drain you have to pull up, and this is what you have to take out to make sure it's clean, and this is where you check to make sure that the temperature, you know, which one's the rinse temperature, which one's the wash temperature, you know, that sort of thing. But we don't have photographs for everything.
Great. Other quick questions for Liz? We're going to try getting Hannah on the line here. Hannah, I unmuted you.
Hello.
Hey, we got you. Liz Buxton, thanks so much for filling us in on your work at the Western Mass Food Processing Center. And we're going to move on to Hannah Melion from Farm Fresh, Rhode Island.
Great. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm looking forward to chatting with everyone. So my name is Hannah. I am currently the Program Director of Food System Enterprise here at Farm Fresh, Rhode Island. If you want to switch to the next slide. So a little bit of background on Farm Fresh. Farm Fresh is a nonprofit, a 501c3. We were founded in 2004. Farm Fresh really initially grew out of a project of a student initiative at Brown University. The goal was to better connect farmers and eaters to not only help farmers sell more food, but to encourage changes in Rhode Island's food system. And so we've been doing that work ever since. So broadly, our mission is to grow a local food system that values the environment, health, and quality of life of farmers and eaters. Our initial programs at Farm Fresh were a local food guide, where you could find information about farms and food and pick your own, and farm stands, and also a farmer's market. We've grown a lot since then. We now talk about our programs under two broad umbrellas. The first is our community access programs, and that includes farmers markets, nutrition education, food stamp incentive programs, and farm to school. And the other is our food system enterprise programs, which are our aggregation and distribution programming. And I'll be talking about those a lot more in the next few moments. So again, broadly, we have today at Farm Fresh, we have about 20 full-time staff, 18 part-time, 3 AmeriCorps service members, 5 to 10 interns, and lots of volunteers. So we have a pretty busy organization and staff doing all of our different programs and activities. This past year we had about a $2 million operating budget. About 60% of our income is earned across the entire organization, and contributed revenues are primarily for education and food access programming. And let's head over to the next slide. So I'll be talking today a little bit about our Market Mobile and Veggie Box program. So as I mentioned, on our enterprise side, we run aggregation and distribution programming, some of the more traditional hub type programs. So our first program is Market Mobile, which is our wholesale distribution program. That program has been around since 2009, and we've moved over $11 million since 2009. We work with about 80 farmers and food producers from all around New England, primarily Rhode Island, Mass, Connecticut, but we also do some work with farmers in upper New England. We work through an online ordering form. We have a warehouse where we do distributions. We lease 3 trucks and rent an additional one depending on the time of year. In our system, farmers set their own prices, and farm name is maintained throughout the entire supply chain. In our Market Mobile program, we do not hold title to our products, but we charge a service fee for the aggregation and distribution of that product. And so let's go to the next slide. So that's our Market Mobile program. Our other main enterprise program is our Veggie Box. The Veggie Box program started in 2011, so we're in our 5th year right now. And that is we call it our Worksite Wellness Program. It's our weekly vegetable delivery service. So we source from farms in our wholesale program, and we pack into boxes and distribute to workplaces and community centers. And that program has grown a lot over the years as well. So this is one of our pictures. We like to take fun pictures of the boxes, so this is an early spring picture. And so there's usually, depending on the time of year, there's somewhere between 6 to 9 different farms, and we again maintain that transparency about where the product is coming from the ordering process to the newsletter that goes out to our customers. We can go to the next slide. And then Harvest Kitchen is our processing program. So again, I mentioned our 2 big buckets of programs are our Access and our Enterprise programs. Our Harvest Kitchen is kind of at the intersection of those 2. Our Harvest Kitchen program is our job training and culinary skill program for youth coming out of the juvenile system who are learning job readiness skills and getting into the workforce. At the same time, they're making value-added products from excess of local farmers' harvest. So we have a line of applesauce, pickles. These are some pictures of some of our tomatoes. We also have a dehydrator now, and we're making apple chips and zucchini chips, and I think next year hopefully we're going to do some dried tomatoes. So there's a lot of stuff going on across the organization, but in the Harvest Kitchen program as well. So you can do next slide. So some of our challenges. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about our process of getting third-party audited. So in 2014, we were continuing to outreach to schools and universities. It's really important to us as part of our mission, and focused on access and creating new opportunities to farmers to be able to reach more schools and universities. So we were approached by a customer who was looking to purchase for their network of universities, and as part of that, we would need to obtain a third-party audit. So we were really interested in this opportunity in terms of what it would do in terms of increasing our access to the institutions we were looking to serve. And so as part of that, we needed to get a certification. So we chose to go with the USDA's Good Handling Practices certification. And so that was a really great process. So there was a lot of things that we needed to do in order to obtain that third-party certification. So I used to joke it was about, I like to joke over the years about different stages of growth of Market Mobile. So I think at the time I was joking about getting our food safety certification was going from a teenager to going to college. So it was kind of our first or more professional experience or so in terms of the growth of the operation. So we ended up, it took us about 4 months to go through that process. So the challenge was going from, I think we had a lot of good systems in place, but we weren't really as in line with all of the requirements of the GHP process. So if you want to switch to the next slide. So in terms of our successes, and this is a picture of one of our veggie boxes, in terms of our success, so again, it took us 4 months from the initial conversation to the time of passing our audit, and we have successfully passed our audit with a 95+ percentage points for the last 3 years. So in that period of time, we went through a process of implementing a new system, training our staff, creating standard operating procedures and binders. Everything that, really feel like everything that we put into place as part of our food safety process for our audit was really things that were really beneficial for us to be doing and things that we should have been doing anyways. So again, in terms of that professionalization, it was a really helpful process for us to be really making sure we were reviewing all the rules and complying with all the things to keep the food safe, to handle the food properly from the farms and make sure that our customers were getting really safe food. So we have a series of binders and trainings and monitoring and processes. We were really lucky that we had a network of other hubs to ask questions about. Definitely give a shout out to Cherry Capital in Michigan. They shared a lot of their standard operating procedures for us that we were able to use as a model and a jump off point. So the third-party audit has opened doors. So initially for us in terms of other sales outlets. So initially, again, we obtained that certification to sell to one particular customer, but it has allowed a lot of other things to happen now that we do have that certification. And something to note for us is that we're really lucky that in Rhode Island, our cooperative extension program runs a state certified GAP program. So a lot of our larger farms were already GAP certified. So it was really great to hear about all the work that Local Food Hub in Virginia is doing in terms of getting all of their farms GAP certified. We're really lucky that that system has already been in place in Rhode Island. So that was something we were able to draw on because we got our food safety certification and then we were immediately able to start using that to sell to these customers because the farm certification was already there. And if you want to move to the next slide. So in terms of thinking about the future for us, so again, as I mentioned, we're up and running with our GHP, or Good Handling Practices audit. So we're doing really well with that. I think there's always things that we could continue to improve on. Definitely looking at FSMA and how that will change things for us and how to keep our practices and processes updated and up to code. One of the things we're looking at is our Harvest Kitchen Processing Program just moved to a new kitchen location earlier this summer. And so we are looking at what third-party certification will look like for the kitchen. And we have had, again, interest from customers who require certification to selling our products. So we're looking at how can we take all the great experience and knowledge that we've learned over the past few years in terms of getting our distribution operation up to date, up to code to do the same with our processing kitchen. It's a little bit different of a certification, so this would be a good manufacturing practices rather than good handling practices, but the basic concepts of setting up standard operating procedures, monitoring, training, all the different pieces, the binders of information, the whole training system, all of that we learned from our hub operation, we can put into our processing operation as well. So we're really looking at how we can transfer that experience to another aspect of our programs. And I think that's my last slide.
Super. Thanks, Hannah. Great overview, and thanks again for sharing. Questions for Hannah at Farm Fresh Rhode Island? I'm not seeing anything yet in the chat box, but I may have missed it. Let me just scroll up. Okay, maybe none at this time, Hannah, but stay with us because folks may chime in a little bit. Next up is Justin Nadeau with Unity Food Hub in Unity, Maine. Let me see if I have Justin. Justin, I need you to, on your phone, just hit #49#. Question for Hannah. Somebody's asking, how do you avoid taking possession of the food?
So the farmers in our system, I mean, the Veggie Box program is different. So in the Veggie Box program, we do buy the food and we sell it, and we do have some inventory. But for the bulk of it, I think it's I feel like another colleague might be able to better answer that question. But so the farmers technically own it in our system.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't have a better technical answer for that question.
Okay, so it sounded like there's a means by which the farm owns the food going through your process, and we can get clarification on that afterward. I'm trying to find the next presentation. Again, is Justin Nadeau with Unity Food Hub out of Unity, Maine, and it looks like, Justin, there may not be PowerPoint slides. Is that right?
Correct.
All right. You're making my job way too easy. Go for it.
Thank
Welcome.
you for putting up the.
Yep.
Thank you for having me.
Yep.
And thank you for putting up the Unity Food Hub homepage there. I'm going to also include just our web link there, so if people want to take a look at some of the information that we do have available. So I'll start right in here. We're relatively young in terms of food hubs. We were founded in 2014. And during that time, we were also building out our building. And so for the first year, we were kind of operating out of Unity's local food pantry. So we weren't able to get into the building until late 2015. The building is a 1898 schoolhouse that went through a historic restoration. And most of the hub operations happen in what's a completely new first floor. There was the foundation wasn't viable, and so the building was lifted, and an entire first floor was put on the building. And so, in terms of food safety, we were able to start from a very new place instead of retrofitting a lot. In this space, we have 3 food storage areas. Our largest is what we use for our cold storage currently. And to give you an idea of how large that cooler is, you can fit comfortably 20 pallets in that room with still space for walking and mini pallets. If we were to fully stock it, which we had it fully stocked last week, you can hold about 23 pallets and 23 mini pallets. This is a foot by 2 feet size, and then there's 2 4-tier shelving racks just in that one cooler. So we are operating that cooler pretty close to its full capacity. The second storage, we have most of our dry goods, where we operate that at a little bit higher temperature with lower humidity for things such as beans and onions. And the third one is currently where we're storing our materials, such as boxes and extra pallets, as well as this is where we have our staff kind of office space. We have a detached freezer from the building, and then we also have our kind of our central area, which is where our food handling and our pack room is located. The upstairs of the building is the old schoolhouse, and it's been restored. It's a shared building, and so there is a commercial kitchen. There's also some programming space, and that's managed by the nonprofit Maine Farmland Trust that Unity Food Hub is a subsidiary of. In terms of food safety, the decision-making going into it, we're right in the beginning. We have a resource here in Maine, Linda Titus, who's been a really big help in helping us navigate those first steps into filtering through the several questions that I'm sure many others that have had to build their food safety have had to go through, and starting from the starting point, not really sure where to start. Linda has been a big help in helping us filter out the priority questions to begin with. So we fall right now under that storage and handling facility. So in terms of food safety, we can start with some relatively general questions which makes building our food safety plan on the simpler side versus having some other programs such as processing that would have other things to consider. Right now, we are essentially going for the GHP certification. Our timeline for that is to have certification before start of next season, hopefully throughout the winter time to have that complete. We pretty much have a draft right now of everything, and right now we are working with implementing a lot of the things such as our daily checklists and our monitoring of temperature and things like that. Some of the challenges that we've run into, I would say, is that, well, traceability, I'd say, is one that we're not quite sure. I think when Lisa said it, it's kind of a chunky system right now where we can trace it, but we want to make sure it's an efficient method so that it won't be a bottleneck for us trying to grow when we have many more products or SKU numbers that we would have on hand. So so this also is a challenge with our inventory tracking right now because it's such a small operation. We see a lot of the items that are within all the coolers, so it's easy to tell what we have on hand. But we also know that just being able to see the items is not going to be very scalable for us. So trying to nail down a good way to track our inventory and to keep that consistent. We're in the middle of implementing the DEAR inventory system. That's DEAR. It's an Australian software company that's helping us implement that, as well as a good keeping us in line with our financials as well. Some of the other, I guess, resources that we use, we have several within the state. There's the Maine Department of Agriculture. There's our university cooperative, and of course we utilize the USDA resources. Some other maybe unique ones, we have a company, Spectrum Analytics, which offers a range of analytical services, including agronomic soil testing and plant tissue analysis. There's also, when we were looking for a sanitizer that would be organic certified, we chose BioSafe, and I had a chance to talk to, it's a small company, and I had a chance to talk to one of their reps about using BioSafe, and they're very energized about their product and a very good resource in terms of using their product. I think I spent an hour on the phone with him and ended up having plenty more questions, and he was more than willing to help as well. One thing that I've found really helpful and also challenging at times is that trying to build a food safety plan that is going to want to be read by all employees because it's a living document, using templates that are pleasing to the eye and help maintain consistency so that it's easy to find things, so that those unique challenges that may arise at one point, such as a contamination event or something that may not happen very often but could, and knowing right where to access that information is a challenge to make sure that it's something that's going to be used and not something that just satisfies a checklist and then you keep it on the shelf until you have to update it again. So it is a living document, and it's always being improved, and that's a challenge to make sure it's something that it's going to be to want to be looked at. We have had some successes early on. There's it's a small win, but we did our mock recall with one of our wholesale companies, and it came back, and it was a little bit more. It wasn't just one lot number, so I was curious to see how effective it was going to be, and we had 3 different lot numbers as well as 3 different disposition areas, and they had no problem finding those items and filling in the mock recall form, and I thought that was really great and something that was a small win for us to implement into our food safety plan. And those small wins are really encouraging. I think I skipped something early on here. I failed to mention a little bit about the people that we do work with. We're mostly a wholesale and retail, so we have food co-ops that we deliver to, as well as a larger food distributor here in Maine called Native Maine. And our retail outlets are shares, such as a CSA, so we are able to pack out a share, a weekly share, and people can order that through an online ordering platform called Farmigo, and we then have we distribute those currently on Thursdays. We're down into southern Maine. As we go forward, some of the things that, because we are such a small operation and limited amount of hours available to do this, we really focus on our efficiencies. So one thing that we recently got to help us in our food safety is some temperature and humidity monitors. With the requirements of keeping logs on temperature and humidity, it was pretty exciting to be able to put these in there, and you can change the rate at which it will measure the temperature. Currently, I'm doing it every 10 minutes, so we can get a baseline measure of what happens as we go in and out of those food storage areas, but it can go as little as twice a day as well. And those simply just sit in there to USB stick that we can pull out and upload the data, and then we can see a graph and trends to help us determine that our systems are working just fine. So again, a small little win for us. It takes one thing off of my plate in terms of keeping track in our logs, so I can focus in on some other things, daily activities, and making sure employees are comfortable with their daily requirements as well. In terms of looking ahead, as I said, I want this to be a living document that everybody here can look at and understand completely, and is inviting to look through and find a question easily, rather than something that feels like an extra task to look through. I want everyone to feel like they're confident in what needs to be done for different food safety procedures and practices, whether it's creating a solution of sanitizer or what to do in case something breaks or falls on the floor. I feel like once we are certified with our food safety plan in a good space for this upcoming year, that we would definitely like to be able to educate other folks as to the similar things that we've talked about today, our challenges and successes, and I feel that will be a little bit clearer after once we obtain our certification. I believe I answered most of the questions. Is there any other questions for me?
No, nothing popping up in the chat box. Justin, that was great. Thank you for giving us an introduction to who you all are and where you've been and where you're headed. I was curious to know to what degree you or how you integrate your crew in the standard operating procedure sort of development. I love the idea that you allude to of making sure there's a culture of ease of use and engagement with those living documents, and I'm curious to know what specifically you're doing to foster that.
Sure, that's a great question. Currently, right now, we kind of pick one or two at a time, and we just have a conversation about it. Excuse me. And see if there's any questions rather than a full training. I think once winter comes and most of the SOPs are in more of a fully written down draft form, that maybe we can have a full day of training to give people a baseline of questions to ask for the upcoming season. But currently, right now, it's on a small, easily chewable bits of information. Something as simple as, here's some new signage up in front of the sink as a reminder to wash your hands. Please let me know if it's clear, if any other questions pop up because of this, and is there any other places that you think this needs to be posted?
Right.
Those types of questions.
Great. Ole is asking if you referred to certification. Is that FSMA, a FSMA certification you're referring to, or some other certification?
Oh, sorry. This was the Good Handling Practices certification.
GHP. Okay, great. And Elizabeth is asking, do you have potential markets asking you to complete an audit?
Not currently. No.
Okay, so this is part of your plan.
This is part of our plan to grow and to what people would expect of us.
Great.
Also, as well as helping farmers with we would like to have the educational portion for farmers, as well as why it's important to maybe pack things a certain way or
Sure.
sift through their products before
Sure.
coming to us.
Great. Thanks, Justin. That's those are the questions I had. I'm going to move on to Brad Stevens. Brad, you may need to enter an audio pin to unmute yourself. Let me see here. It is #76# on your phone, please. Meanwhile, I'm going to advance to that slide. Going to give Brad just a couple seconds here, see if we can. Okay, I thought we had it before, Brad. Sorry. It looks like you need to enter an audio pin to unmute yourself. I think just in the interest of time, I'm going to keep moving and get to Robin and Bill. Robin, you're unmuted, it looks like.
Yep, just unmuted.
Okay, and your slide is being shown.
Yeah,
Robin,
hi, everybody.
So Robin Morris from Mad River Food Hub in Waitsfield, Vermont. Go ahead, Robin. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Robin Morris, and I founded the Mad River Food Hub in 2011. The goal for the Food Hub was a food business incubator to increase the number of value-added processors in our area using local produce. I'm joined today by Bill Kavanagh. Bill joined us 2 months ago and is our meat specialist at Mad River Food Hub. Bill's background is that of a butcher and retail business manager at Fleisch's in New York and Dundor and Heister in Pennsylvania. Bill's going to take most of the detailed slides. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the business. So firstly, we're a for-profit. Our business model is based on providing support to our customers along the whole value chain. So we backhaul products in, produce in. We do raw produce storage. We do processing, finished product storage, and distribution in a 50-mile radius. when we did our original business plan, we couldn't see how to make a profit doing this using just vegetable processing, so we started looking at meat, and everybody told us don't do it. The main reason for that is because vegetable processing is done under the business's certificate, but meat processing is done under the facility. So our facility gets a grant of inspection from the USDA and the state. The main difference is that when our customers come to us and they process for meat, they're working as a quasi-employee. So there was a lot of speculation as to whether we could make meat work. A lot of people said that you can't have a shared facility doing meat, but here we are in our 6th year. Last year we had a 3.5-week USDA FSIS audit. We did quite well in it. We had to do a lot of modifications to our HACCP plan, but overall it just set our minds at rest that we had a safe facility. So for me, the greatest success in the last 5 years has been that watching our 50+ customers whose businesses are better because the Mad River Food Hub is here. The biggest challenge over that time has been our ready-to-eat facility. When I say ready-to-eat, I mean a cured meat facility. And we're on 3 versions of our HACCP plan so far, 4 revisions of our engineering, and currently still at 50% capacity. It's been hard work to make this work. So Bill's going to take you through the nuts and bolts of our food safety plan in a moment. I just wanted to finish with one thought. We do lots of things. In addition to the dry storage and the processing, we have 2 trucks on the road 5 days a week. As you see, we move cheese from our facility up to Jasper Hill. We move pigs to a local restaurant. Today we made our first run from the west side of the Green Mountains to the east side of the Green Mountains, bringing milk from a local dairy to 3 or 4 retail establishments in our area. So we really act as a resource for our community. I'll pass you over to Bill. Next slide, please.
So hi guys, I'm Bill Kavanaugh. I'm new and I'm the meat guy. You know, one of the things that we do here that I think is pretty unique is that we do meat. You know, we're not strictly an FDA facility. You know, any non-meat processing that does happen here happens under Vermont State Department of Health, which is aligned with FDA rules and regs. As far as meat processing goes, initially all meat processed here was done under Vermont State Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets. In Vermont, state inspection is equal to USDA inspection. So adding USDA inspection for us was very easy and happened very quickly. So everything we do under state or USDA meat-wise is in accordance with a HACCP plan that we've developed for each and every process. Each HACCP plan is based on a large set of standard operating procedures. We follow for everything from thermometer calibration to hand washing to receiving of shipments. So state and USDA inspection also means that the facility itself is the holder of the grant of inspection. We have an inspector on site every day. He monitors all the processing that takes place just to make sure that we're complying with our HACCP plans. You can imagine this takes a large amount of record keeping. So in addition to just raw cuts and sausages, we also produce ready-to-eat food at the Food Hub. So having a ready-to-eat facility brings its own very unique challenges. Ready-to-eat requires additional care to ensure that the product is safe without a cooking step. The customer could, in theory, take it and eat it. It is ready to eat. So having that in-house means that we need very strong SOPs, very strong sanitation SOPs, and very thorough HACCP plans. So one of the things that we started to do once we began doing ready-to-eat is microbiological testing. So we're currently swabbing all of our ready-to-eat areas for environmental listeria, and every lot of salami that goes out is tested for salmonella. So one of the things that we talk about a lot as it relates to regulation is that, we're all familiar, the USDA and FDA set the minimum for food safety, but then the large retailers like Whole Foods require much higher standards like SQF. So it's very important for us to kind of go further than just the minimum set by USDA and FDA. Next slide, Chris, if you could. So as I mentioned, everything produced here under inspection is under a HACCP plan. We currently have 11 HACCP plans in-house that cover everything you see there, pretty much everything from just a straight raw ground product up to a dry-cured salami. These plans make sure that the food that's produced is produced safely, and the plans themselves serve as an archetype for the process. So recipes may vary from customer to customer. The actual critical control points that are being measured, your time, your temperature, pH, water activity, they're going to remain the same throughout. So it gives a nice, consistent level of food safety. They're not entirely set in stone. I mean, these plans can change based on the needs of our customers. Occasionally, they want to explore a more efficient process. They feel like they could change something to increase product quality. So we have the ability in-house to either redraft these or draft entirely new HACCP plans for either a new customer or an existing customer who has an idea for a new product. One of the things we're working on right now that we're very excited about is development on a cured whole muscle HACCP. So right now we're doing cured salamis, but we're looking to get into whole muscles like bresaola, prosciutto, coppa. We have a customer who's very interested in that. So as it stands right now, we'd be the only facility in Vermont producing a whole cured muscle. So we're very excited. Next one, Chris, if you could. So our model here is a little unique, and it brings some pretty specific challenges, but also a lot of successes that we're very proud of. As some of you may have sort of guessed, the Food Hub holds all liability for all USDA HACCP plans here. Me, as the resident meat guy, it's my responsibility to sign off on each and every lot of product that leaves our facility. So we have some customers who are very experienced and have a very high knowledge of food safety who don't require, constant hands-on monitoring. But we also have a lot of people who come to us with a good idea, a lot of enthusiasm, and not much else. So it's kind of my job to get new customers up to speed, get them compliant with HACCP plans, get them thinking from a food safety standpoint, keep everybody at the same high level of food safety. We're also a community-focused facility here, which kind of brings its own challenges. For anybody who may have ever visited our facility, I think one of the first things that really stands out is that it's a real hive of activity here. At any given time, there are storage customers coming and going with product, local producers who are delivering ingredients to someone producing here. It could kind of get like Grand Central Station here sometimes. So the real trick is to make sure everyone entering the facility is here for a reason, is complying with our rules and SOPs, and is not in any way endangering food safety. We have very clear, distinct signage on every door that talks about, you must have a hairnet on, closed-toed shoes, basically just making sure that people, if you're not directly observing them, they're at least aware of what our rules and requirements are. So doing distribution is kind of a similar challenge. We have 2 trucks on the road at any given time, a lot of moving pieces, and we need to make sure that we maintain a cold chain all the way from receiving right through to processing and then to the final destination of the product. So as far as our successes go, we're very proud to have, as Robin mentioned, 50-plus customers from our community. Everyone from a small hobby farmer who slaughtered 50 chickens just for her own consumption and she needs a place to stash them for the next 8 or 9 months, all the way through to some relatively large local meat processors. We even have a distillery who uses our storage space and that we backhaul for. So over the years, we've also built very strong relationships with our regulators. So we have a professional working relationship with our USDA inspector, who I mentioned is we have different USDA inspectors on site here every day. We did that by demonstrating a commitment to just total transparency as it relates to food safety. We really look at our regulators as our partners, and we think that leads to a very strong relationship. Graduating customers are another major success for us. We are a business incubator here. We're not the end-all be-all solution for a growing business. We're here to get them off the ground. So last year, amongst others, we graduated Joe's Soups, who was one of the first ready-to-eat producers here in the facility. And he was actually able to move into his own USDA facility, very much based on what he experienced here. Lastly, our dry cured facility is something I think everyone here is very proud of. Dry cured ready-to-eat products like salami are pretty hard to make, and they require a really in-depth level of food safety, very in-depth HACCP plans. So if we hadn't laid the groundwork that we did as far as SOPs and a high level of food safety, that wouldn't be possible. So right now we're one of the very few shared use dry cured facilities in the country, and we're very happy to have that here and offer that to our community. Next slide, if you would, Chris. So looking ahead for us, obviously FSMA is big on the horizon for everybody. We tend to focus a lot on the USDA angle here because of all the meat processing that goes on, but we are also an FDA facility. People could come in and produce non-meat ingredients, and it's important for us to stay current with changing regulatory environment. Obviously for the business aspect, but there's also a role that the Food Hub plays in the community. We're not just a processing center, distribution center. We're really looked to as an institution that can offer advice and guidance for food safety issues and regulation. So to that end, we make ourselves available to farmers and producers here in the Valley and beyond who may not necessarily be our customers, but who could really use our help to be successful. I just came back from PCQI training in Massachusetts with a couple people who I think are on this phone call. And as a lot of people have mentioned, PCQI is an important part of FSMA. And we made the decision for me to do that because it's something that we have to offer to our customers, to have a PCQI on staff. And we think it's something that we have to offer our community as a whole. Education is another really important next step for us. It's critical at us here at the Hub to be able to recruit and onboard new companies as older customers either graduate or occasionally decide to sort of phase out. And we really feel the best way to do that is to take the lead on training the next generation of meat processors, food processors really. And the idea is through our training, if we can inspire a little entrepreneurial zeal, that would sort of help us help them. So we're going to be running our first week-long butchery intensive this winter, and we actually are already talking about some further dates next year. That's going to focus not just on the nuts and bolts of meat cutting, but also on the business aspect and on food safety. So we also plan to step up our environmental testing because ready-to-eat is growing. So we're planning to go monthly with our listeria test. We're going to be upgrading some of our data logging equipment in coolers and freezers. And finally, as we all know, you never really get to the point with your food safety system where you can sort of look at it and say, that's it, I'm done and we're good. Things are always changing, regulations are always being updated, and there's always room for continuous improvement in your process, increased sanitation, and just better training. So that's kind of where we're going. That's what I got. So if there's any questions, I'm here.
Thanks, Bill and Robin. We do have one question from Lisa Reeder. She asks, how do you cover the expense of new HACCP plans? For example, if a single customer may expand into a new category.
Well, it does depend on the HACCP plan. Certain HACCP plans, I would say most HACCP plans we can develop in-house. Like I said, we have very strong SOPs and SSOPs to build off of. Something like the dry cured whole muscle project that we're working on, we have brought in some outside help, and we're working on ways to sort of creatively finance that.
Thanks. I don't see any other questions at the moment, and I do have my eye on the clock, and we said we'd only keep you all here till 2:30. And I also want to make sure, here we have a real quick one from Luke Laborde with respect to FSMA and the produce safety and preventive controls rules, to what extent do you feel comfortable that you understand coverage, exemptions, modified requirements, compliance deadlines, and where you can get assistance on these topics? What can FDA and regional outreach centers and extension do to help increase understanding of the rules as well as food safety best practices? And that's asked as an essay question, so we'll let's come back to that after Brad's, because I think that's a question for everybody. Good question, Luke. Brad, I think
it is a good question.
Brad, I think we have you, and we're able to hear you now.
Okay.
Awesome, thanks.
Okay. It really has been a turmoil here trying to get through. We could keep this very short because Liz and Robin pretty much summed up a lot of what I was going to talk about when you get right down to it. But anyway, I'll give a quick intro here. Commonwealth Kitchen was founded as Crop Circle Kitchen. In 2009, we took over Nuestra, which was a failing sort of shared kitchen that was built as a catering kitchen, and it really didn't do well. In fact, there were 2 masterpieces written on it. It was such a glorious failure. We started then to take a look at it just wasn't working, and we happened to have come across a property with Dorchester Bay, who is a community development organization, the old Pearl Meat Plant in about 2011, 2012, and we started a project looking at that, and we received quite a bit of HUD money to then sort of revitalize part of one of the poorest neighborhoods in the city of Boston, right here in Quincy Street in Dorchester. It was pretty bad. This plant had been abandoned for about 10 years at that point. We started construction in about 2013, and then we opened up in May of 2014. During that whole time, we met with city and state constantly, as well as then some of the FDA and USDA folks. And basically, they don't like us. They don't like the idea of a shared kitchen. They don't like the idea of everything going on here. They don't like everything that moves, all the moving parts. So we really tried to develop a sense of confidence on their part and develop them as partners, as we've all talked about. And it really has worked very, very well. I mean, I'm almost offered our state inspector a bed here, for God's sakes. I mean, the guy is here so often, it's really actually very great, and they develop great relationships. So that is really what, we have started off here. And if you can move on to the next slide. One of the balls that we have going on here is the shared kitchen, and we really take it very seriously. It is truly probably one of the largest parts of what we have. We do a number of things with business development, and we tried, one of our major roles besides babysitting is educating, just like other people have talked of. And we've set up a Business 101 class, which has helped immensely in trying to get some of our folks who, just like everybody else, they're software engineers who have the best cookie in the whole wide world, and they really don't even know how to clean. They take a look at a 20-quart mixer and they sort of freak out. So we've done a lot of that. We spend an awful lot of time trying to work with them, getting through the permitting process and everything else, because as everybody has said, it's a quagmire, and it's just not fun. We have really set it up then, get them in here. We train them very, very well up front. We go do a lot of going over a handbook with them. We go over, they all have to be serve safe, and then we're really taking advantage of Amanda's class out of UMass for the product development. And with the wholesalers particularly, we're beginning to almost require that as part of their entry, getting in here. It helps immensely. Serve safe just isn't enough, and we found that this course really helps. Then one of the other balls that we have going on here is the state licensed shared commissary that we have over on our side. And we try to really spend about 35% of our time taking up the slack. Well, they get to a point, the entrepreneurs get to a point where they just can't really fiscally make it anymore or physically make it anymore. They, have a space, they're like 1 or 2 people generally, and it just isn't working. And so what we've done is we have staff. We really are set up as a jobs program on this side. And we get people who are walking distance. And this is what, we're really about, and just being part of the community. And we have starting to train them all on food service and basically how to cook, how to do things, how to peel beets, etc. A lot of them have virtually no skills. We spend a lot of time with them. And in the meantime, what we do is we help to scale up the entrepreneurs over on, as I say, the other side. You'd have to see the building, but physically there are two different kitchens. And it really has been turning out to be a sort of a great way of doing things, where they then get to go out and do their sales, which they're their own best salespeople. And this allows us also to keep people employed and keep things going. You go on to the next slide, please. That's just a little bit of what, some of the products we do. The lower left hand, if you ever get a chance to get up here, is Exodus Bagels. They make an awesome bagel. It's really good. Next slide. This is just a quick little note on what we're doing in the community overall. And as I said, a lot of ours, we are a jobs program. We've got about 150 people employed throughout the whole building, and 70% are minority or women workers. And I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of the 40 companies we have under our wing, I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 40% are women-owned, minority-owned as well. So we're pushing very hard to try to fill those gaps, with food and food service, to give people a chance to get some economic, sort of sustainability going on. If you go to the next slide, please. That's what this is all about, right there. We're trying to strengthen the food economy, which helps strengthen the local economy and just keeps the neighborhood going. We really have done, hopefully a lot of good things along those lines. We have two other balls that are going on in place here too. One is warehousing, and then what is sort of different, we have a 36,000 square foot facility, and about 50% of that is under a Commonwealth kitchen. The rest of it is under tenants who are, some of them, actually two of them are graduates, and they are their own space. They rent from the landlord directly. They build out the kitchens and everything else, their own sort of, it's all food service type of production. We work with them very closely, and it's a very collaborative environment here, but it really gets into throwing in a whole new twist too. We're all under the same roof. And one of the things that everybody sort of alluded to, it's difficult. It's very difficult. I sometimes tell myself I'm a glorified babysitter of the entire building, but really my role is that of an educator. And I have to spend a lot of time doing nothing but walking around, as I joke. After about 6:30 in the morning, my life isn't my own. I have to go around, you keep an eye on it, you keep everything. Doing it. And we run into, some of the very specific difficulties is that it's just constant. One of our most recent people that have come over is a broth person, and he's been through full HACCP training. He's been through almost every type of training possible, and yet he sort of blew his chilling the other day, really quite badly. And it just happened to have been, we were doing a check on it, and came out to be 70 degrees the following morning. We had to have him dispose of all of it. And this brings up a real question of what I was going to bring up, is what is our role here as not only just an educator, but I run into real problems because I also almost have to be an enforcer. People do know what they're supposed to do. We stay on them, but yet so many times they're busy. They're entrepreneurs. They don't, I think someone's saying, they just don't know, and you keep constantly trying to educate them. And I'm not really fond of that role, but it is something which we basically have to do. And I am very concerned because if one company has a problem, we're all going to go down, and it's going to affect the entire building. So coming to that, one of the major questions I have too, and this was part of what Luke was bringing up too, Luke summarized it pretty well. How does FSMA affect all of these companies? Robin, you had talked about how you have one person in charge up there. If I am that person in charge and two of my chefs are, do we accept the whole responsibility for the entire building? That's, part of the real question I have. Do each of the small companies have to have their own risk analysis done? Where does our responsibility end and the tenants begin? So it's like there are a lot of different types of things that are going on there. And I'm wondering, sometimes if we can transition Amanda's class that we're doing here in Massachusetts with the product development, maybe into more of a FSMA-oriented type of class as well. But I don't know, FSMA Light or something like that. But we're really not getting. I've talked to the FDA on this several times, and they're not sure what to do with us. And it's a great question. Where do we go? What do we do? And how much is our responsibility? How much is our liability? And it actually makes me very nervous. We have a great track record, and I don't want to break it. So that's really, about what I have to say here.
Thanks, Brad. It's kind of it's a critical question all around. What rule and what parts of it apply to me, and what are my responsibilities as part of that. Food hubs in particular are a unique situation regarding custody and possession and ownership and responsibility. And yeah, as you say, the question is clear. The answer is less so, and and that's the point of why NECAFS exists, and is to try to help facilitate getting these questions answered. So no silver bullet answer from me today, that's for sure on that. But hearing it from this group and in this context is incredibly helpful for me and the other folks on the call, so that we can start to mobilize resources and get these questions answered. That said, any questions for Brad from the group, or I can also open it up to questions in general. The one thing I will also say is Elizabeth Newbold, who is the NECAFS project coordinator, center administrator, was able to take Luke's question and actually add it to the evaluation for this webinar. And so for those of you who really were hoping to have an opportunity for an essay response, you have it now. So it's been added to the evaluation form. And Luke, thanks for asking that question. I think it's kind of the critical one here, at least from my perspective, is better understanding what you all feel are the critical barriers to FSMA rule-related compliance, and help us to figure out how to get you resources that you need. So Elizabeth has pasted in the survey link. It's a Google form, and it's in the chat box. We really would appreciate everybody taking some time to do that. You can do it now if you want, or you can do it after we get off the call. Any other questions lingering out there? If you've asked one previously and I don't have it, type it in again in the chat box. I'll just give it a few seconds here. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions coming up. I think with that, again, thank you, Brad, for bringing us home with the last presentation. All the other presenters today, thanks so much for taking the time to summarize where you're at in your food hub and the challenges you have faced, and some of the successes and where you're headed in the future. You can count on future programming in the form of webinars and other educational activities through NECAFS and the other national programs, including the Produce Safety Alliance and the Food Safety Preventive Controls Alliance, FSPCA, who handles the preventive controls training initiative. And I think the opportunity for some tailored programs for food hubs is really significant, and I appreciate everybody's input in today's webinar that I think really points to that need. With that, I also want to just thank Elizabeth Newbold for pulling together the webinar today and organizing the all the various presentations and all of the work on the back end. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.